This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by the Chasing Artwork bookstore. That's chasingartwork.bigcartel.com, where everything is now on sale as the store will be closing soon.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm here with my long-suffering co-hosts, Justin Curry, also known as Chasing Artwork, and Dan Vadeboncoeur, our producer extraordinaire. We have talked a bunch of different times on this podcast about the creative schedule. And I can tell, because I can see Justin this time, I can tell from his hair that his creative schedule has changed quite a bit over the last little while.
How can you tell from his hair?
I can tell from his hair because he looks a little jostled. He looks a little like maybe he stayed up late doing side quests and he's at home working. I'm just curious as to whose schedule, like what is different now that we're a month and a half in for you, Justin, in your daily routine? Because we normally would see each other. I would be able to tell everyone exactly what's changed for you, but we haven't been working in the same space for well over a month and a half now. What is your day like? How has it changed?
It hasn't.
You have kept the same schedule. I'm so jealous.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I still go to the studio and.
Could I please send my children to live with you?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Dan laughs with kind of a sadness in his heart.
I mean, I share custody of my kids. I have my kids 50% of the time, and it is very difficult to get to get things done on my schedule when they come in here. So I have to change every few days. I change my schedule, right? So I try and get as much I try to get as much work done in the days that they're not here. Unfortunately, it's kind of so that I can focus on helping them with their schoolwork and their stuff when they are here.
Yeah,
that's kind of been my thing.
When we started, I had a really we had a lot. I found like for myself being stricter and more like stubbornly adherent to the system that I had set up was working just to like convince myself that even though the world is changing, I don't need to change. Everything will be fine. But now I have a whole different schedule. It's like evolved from that first week of like, I'll just do it like normal and work in around it, what other needs there are. Now, I have these little, I can hold a little board up for you guys, but I have these little bite-sized tasks. I've had to divide everything up into things that rather than are like 4-hour chunks of work are like 40-minute chunks of work, right? Like if I have a page of illustration to do, I'll set up. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a nice board there, Justin.
I've done the exact same thing.
Yeah. So
sticky notes.
Yeah, so like a practical side here is like if I'm working on a page of illustration, I'll spend 4 hours straight figuring out the compositional layouts, the elements, all the pieces, where they go. I kind of do a deep dive, block everything out of my head and mind, and just do that work without interruption. I love it. I haven't had 4 hours of uninterrupted work in 6 weeks, I guess. So, right. So I've had to instead adjust to these like 40-minute, half-hour, maybe an hour-long sort of sprints. So, I'm working on a couple of different comic projects, but rather than think about them as pages now, I've divided those pages up into elements on that page. And if I can get the, car in the background done today, I'm so happy with myself. It's having to readjust what qualifies as productive has been the hardest part for me. As someone who maybe is a little bit of a workaholic and used to like really getting a lot of stuff done all at the same time, having to raise my children lovingly as a checkmark box each day is been a different thing.
I have to say that for me it was easier. My schedule's changed twice since this started, but because as an instructor, my classes were still in session when we all went into lockdown. So I was teaching remotely from home through a video conferencing software like this, like we're using right now. But now classes are over, so that would help keep me to a schedule. Like I would still get up for 8 a.m. classes because my students would get up. We'd all get up and log on together and have a class, and that actually went pretty well. But now the classes are over, and it's been basically marking for the last week and a half. That's been the tough thing to stick with, because of all the things I do in my job, I like marking the least. It's my least favorite thing to do. So it's something that invites more procrastination than usual with me.
Yeah. And let's face it, as a former educator, I can tell you that marking is the thing that's you spend so much time and attention on that is looked at and understood the least by all parties who receive it.
Especially now. Like, there used to be, back when we had physical, like, we have software and stuff to help us with this now, where we can communicate to the students via software. But before that, it was all hard copies, and we would, like, at the end of the semester, we'd mark all the final assignments, we'd put them in a bin at the office door and say, come pick up your assignments. Nobody would.
You're right.
They sit there all summer long, and then they come back in the fall and go, what about those assignments? I'm like, they've been sitting there for 3 months. So yeah, at this point, nobody really cares about the feedback that much, but you need to put it in there, and you need to have a justification for the mark. And the whole point of it is just to get feedback and constructive criticism. So you need to give them that part as well. But that's been the most time-consuming thing I've done over the last. Although I had last 2 days, I've really motored through a lot. It's been really good. So, and with the kids here too, which I'm pretty proud. I was able to get that done and have the kids at home. So
I am also proud of you. I have, aside from, I've been living vicariously through the really hard work of my collaborators, actually. Like when Hannah sent, we gushed for a long time in the last episode about Hannah. When Hannah sent that work done, it made me feel like I'd been accomplishing things when really it was just all of her hard work because my name is attached to that project. The stuff that Justin sends about Drag Nanny, it's like, okay, I'm not useless. We're still accomplishing things, but really it's just projection. They're doing all the hard work. I'm just involved sort of later in those projects. So I'm trying to pull up my socks and get a bunch of stuff finished that is self-initiated. It does help that I have some editors who don't take no for an answer. That's a good thing to have. But I had taken for granted how a 4 or 5 hour stretch of work would allow me the ability to switch between lots of projects and still have flow and momentum. Like if I was deep into writing something and then I suddenly had an idea for a page composition, I could switch my desktop over to that, do that page composition, keep going. That momentum that would bleed into lots of projects, having to restart that momentum each time I start every hour, that has been something that has been a new skill to work on and develop. And I'm just trying not to be too hard on myself. A few weeks ago, I was way harder. Oh. There's a child behind me. I see Justin suddenly waving, and I'm like, oh no, maybe his sound went out. But no, it is my child. Finley, would you like to say hello to the Super Pulp Science listeners?
Well, hello, first of all. Second of all, me and Leaf did everything today on that list except writing. So me and Leaf are going to write.
You're going to do some writing now?
Yeah, and then we can...
All right, sounds great. Give me 5.
We're going to punch some guys in the face.
Yeah, we downloaded a Neo Geo game, an old Neo Geo arcade game. What's it called? Galaxy Fighter?
Yeah, Galaxy Fighter.
Oh my gosh. It's like Street Fighter, but with science fiction characters.
And it's in space.
Yeah, and it's in space. So he is just informing me that all of his homeschool work is almost done.
Only writing I haven't done.
Only writing he hasn't done yet. So why don't you run off and do that, and we'll figure out what of this has to be edited out, if any, at all.
If any, that was an adorable moment. There you go. That's it. That's it right there, right? That's exactly what your life has been.
That's it, yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is just resetting what our expectations for school are. So, you have to, imagine, you have to create, you have to calculate, you have to write, you have to read, you have to do that kind of stuff every day. And so we figure out what that looks like. Sometimes it's stuff the teachers provide. Sometimes the stuff they provided is just, no offense to them, but just so boring that trying to keep a kid entertained becomes your job in that lesson. Whereas if you can recraft a lesson that is in itself self-directed and entertaining, then carry on with the work, right? So yeah, I lost my train of thought, but gosh, I do appreciate through that, and this I guess is my heart on my sleeve moment, that the kids miss Justin. That they talk about him, they wish they could hang out with him, that that it was good to pick a studio partner that, is good with kids. So I've appreciated that.
And has lots of toys.
And has lots of toys, yeah. Action figures.
Discovered check. How does that grab you, Caesar? Your move, Imperator.
I don't know about you, but I've found myself doing a lot more research and a lot more skills building work in this break.
Okay, I was thinking about this today. So last night, I was saying before the podcast started that I was doing a lot of side quests yesterday. And by that, I mean I was emptying storage lockers and cleaning out a bunch of boxes of random things that have been collecting dust. And there was a lot of piles of things that past me was like, someday when I have all the time in the world, I'll get to this and that and the other thing. And now that we're kind of in a position where we do have like a lot of downtime where, I have that opportunity. I still have no interest in doing these things that past me was holding on to.
Time to get rid of them then.
Yeah, so I've purged them. So it's helping me kind of focus a little bit and let go of things that I've been hanging on to with this notion that someday I'll get around to them. Now I'm realizing they're not that important. I don't need to hang on to them anymore. So those are getting donated or tossed out or recycled or what. And I'm trying to because our future is a little uncertain right now with just our whole business model is kind of like upheaved. I'm trying not to think too far into the future. I'm like focusing on Dragon Nanny and the launch of that. Like my next big book project is all I'm trying to keep in my mind. If I go too far beyond that, it stresses me out.
Yeah, because it wasn't uncommon for us to plan sort of 24 months in advance.
Yeah, we had, yeah.
And now, who knows what 24 months will look like. I'd be lucky to know if I can predict what 3 months in advance will be like,
That's why I'm trying to keep the blinders on for those 3 months because, like everybody else, we don't know. We're all kind of waiting to hear. It's kind of scary right now. Like, as of May, 4th, they were, opening patios and opening all these other things, but the internet is still full of all these terrifying stories of what's going on. And
well, it's a classic case of governance trying to figure out what body count will their voting constituents accept. Well, like, honestly, like if we project this, let's go back to something like, say, the Vietnam War, right? Which was widely opposed by Canadians and Americans at large. If the body count had been 2 or 3% higher, they believe, like, and this is like in retrospect, a lot of researchers look at it and say, if 2 or 3% more Americans had died every month, enough people would have protested the war that it might have stopped. But the powers that be didn't want it to stop, and so they kept those numbers. They manipulated those numbers and made plans to keep that under control. We have a similar kind of thing going on right now, right? There's a certain amount of death is inevitable, and they're trying to figure out at what to throttle, right? If
way of looking at it.
Well, it's just I've also been reading a lot of I have in my library copies of Machiavelli, copies of Plato and Aristotle's histories on how all that shook out. I have Tacitus's histories. I have Caesar stuff, and for another project, I've been reading excerpts of how all of these different people basically controlled information from their own people in order to get their own agendas served. And, we still read about them in history. They were cornerstones of our modern society. And it's hard to read that stuff hundreds, if not thousands of years later and be like, well, shit, that's the same trick they're using right now. And everyone's falling for it exactly the same way. So, and rather than be upset about it, just simply recognize that it's a tool of governance. That if you have a huge number of people who disagree on a particular subject, how do you still run the country or any big group, right? Strange but true. Now, on the skill building side, I've been looking at Mark Simon's really great book, Storyboard Motion in Art. It's just like it's a really interesting resource. It's not, what's the word? It's not particularly didactic. It's really light. It's basically a book that says if you wanted to do storyboarding for film, here's a whole bunch of different ways that it is done, rather than set up the one way, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Is this one of those things like this book? Have you gone through this before? Was this one of those things that you were, when I have the time, I'll get around to?
Much more of a, so like when I have done any storyboards for film or television or theater, any of that kind of stuff, I've always just kind of worked with the directors and kind of made up what they needed, rather than have any real formal education or study on how to do it. We were just using words and pictures, get the idea across. They'd say, okay, that's good enough, and they'd run off and shoot with it. This is a lot more, what would I call it? A lot more step-by-step from the very beginning. It's baby steps to the advanced stages. And it's really got me thinking about all the things basically that I should have known then. It's funny, you look at it and you're like, oh wow, I could have been way better at this if only I had practiced and studied. But it just goes to show how much of how much your individual network of people project their needs into your own experiences, right? Like if you have a pre-existing relationship with a person and they say, hey, I know you can draw pretty well, can you come and do these storyboards? Any of the stuff that practice and education was missing is made up for or propped up by the relationship you have with that person, where they know what you really mean, and so you kind of triangulate what you're after. It really, looking through this book, really underlines how far I have to go before I could be a really good asset on a full-scale film production. You know, like just the pace and scale in which you would have to be able to produce storyboards, which is something I find really interesting personally, because it's like tons and tons of shitty drawings that each individual frame, you know, you would say, oh man, it's barely comics. It's not really, it's really hard to even understand what's going on. But then when you take them in sequence, of course, it's unmistakable from a person who is behind a camera what it is you're trying to convey. So just another, you know, it's one of those things that I've always wanted to be better at.
Well, it's one of those, and also to comment on how quickly you need to do it, there's constant rewrites with pretty much every film production ever, right? Like if it takes you a day to do a scene, then you're kind of useless when they're needing refreshed and revised storyboards constantly through production. Yeah,
and Nick Burns, who's been on the podcast before, he's done this. You know, this is
his wheelhouse.
Yeah, his wheelhouse. Well, it's more than his wheelhouse. It's like he built the wheel, and then he lends it to other people to use.
He could write a book or teach a course on this for sure.
Oh, he absolutely could. And he and I have talked about it extensively. And it's interesting too, because I always felt like I totally understood what he meant about a whole bunch of different things. And digging really deep into it, I realized that I had a surface understanding of the needs of these. This industry, but the truth is I'm so used to being in charge of which picture and which image and which scene is which, being able to translate somebody else's immediate request, a totally different set of skills that are required, you know, because I have a certain kind of compositional element that I like to use, and I just go back to the well over and over and over. But if another director comes in and that isn't it, right? What works in a lens and what works as a drawing are not at all the same.
But I wonder, like, how many films were drastically changed, not from the writer, but from the storyboard artist. You know, they never talk about the storyboard artist that changed X film to make it better, you know?
I don't think he could talk about that because he signs non-disclosure agreements for everything he does.
He can't take credit for any good ideas. It has to be the writer, right?
Yeah. I've talked to him about this actually. He did the storyboards for Tales from the Loop most recently. That was one of the ones that he's done. And I wanted to put together a Tales from the Loop panel for FanQuest, that would have some of the people who worked on it. Doug Morrow, who also has been a guest at FanQuest last time, as a makeup artist, and he worked on that as well. Plus, I know at least one actor who was in that series. So I was trying to bring together all these Manitoba film industry people to talk about working on that project. And Nick's like, I don't know how much I can talk about it. It's an NDA. Like I can't really show you my storyboards. I can't. I can't talk about it that much. So unfortunately, we're not able to see that. But it would be interesting to know, Justin. You're absolutely right. It would be interesting to know. Like, it's got to happen, right? The storyboard artist has a lot of input into how that film looks.
They're essentially they're putting it through the filter of visual medium, right? They're rewriting the story as they draw it out. So I'm sure they're adding, subtracting, or manipulating all the time, and we never hear about that, right? Like that scene in that famous movie, that happened because the storyboard artist thought that'd be a cool thing to throw in there.
And for something like Tales from the Loop, which is already based on, as you guys call it, an anchor image. That's what you guys like to talk about. That whole series is based on a series of images by a painter. So that is another way you're taking somebody else's art and you're helping to translate that into a different visual medium. Yeah. Which with also some storytelling elements. So that's another interesting way of doing it. But I'll figure it out. If we can get them in to do something at FanQuest, we will. But I'm hoping to get some kind of thing going about it, especially if they do I don't know if they're going to do another season or not, but if they come back here to shoot again, I definitely would like to get some more insight into that series. It's really good. Have you seen it yet, Greg?
I haven't watched it. No.
It's really good. You gotta watch it.
There are only so many hours, Stan.
I know. You gotta stay up after the kids go to bed. You stay up and play video games and/or watch Netflix.
Oh,
this is what I do.
Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Those found without specific military orders are subject to summary execution. Stay in your homes.
I've been working at Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, that's how I was going.
Final Fantasy VII are the two games I'm playing right now. It's good. They're great games. We talked about on another podcast. I do a video game based podcast. We were talking about the Final Fantasy VII remake, and then one of the other hosts put a question to people: what games would you like to see remade? And it's a different kind of a beast, right? A video game remake is not the same as a movie remake,
right?
A lot of times they're just updating the graphics and the visuals to be more, because the technology is better than it was 20-something years ago. So one of the ones I put forward was to have a remake of Metal Gear Solid, because I think that would be a great game. The visuals are not great. I mean, from a top-down view, like the view that you're playing the game at, it's okay. But once you get in close to Snake, you can barely see his face, and there's not a lot of detail there. So I'd like to see that redone. But he is a bit of I don't want to say he's misogynist, but he's not. He's a little too familiar with the ladies. We'll say he just hits on everybody. I mean,
there was a lot of misplaced male power fantasy in that game for sure. But there's also this. It's to me, it's amusing, the whole franchise of Metal Gear Solid, because it's like another culture's version of an American hero.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
from Japan.
Well, they must look at a film that we make, like that a Westerner makes, idealizing the samurai in some reductive way, and laugh the same way, right? Because that's what Snake is. He's that reductive version of an American hero, right? Mm-hmm. Sold back to us.
It's like Die Hard. It's like their take on Die Hard. Like one guy sneaking his way through the facility to take out all the bad guys. Yeah, and our version of their stuff is like the Magnificent Seven or something like that, where we take like their classic story and change it into a Western.
Yeah.
Whatever we do with it.
I don't know what I would want to be remade. Do you have any thoughts there, Justin?
Like 7 was always the really big one for me, and like I loved the remake. I thought they did a really good job. The big thing that kind of irked me about it was, like, in the PlayStation version, it had a pretty unique style to it, right? Like, it had its own look. And the last couple, like, new games that I've played, they all look like they're based in the same, like, game engine. Like, they all look like they've been built from the same sandbox.
But you don't like that one?
Sorry?
You don't like that one as much, the one that's built in now?
I felt like some of the style was bled out of it because it looked the exact same as, like, I just replayed the remake of Resident Evil 2. And right on its heels, I played the remake of Final Fantasy 7, and the characters looked exactly the same. They were just in different settings, but it looked like they came from the same sandbox. They were built from the same kit, kind of thing.
That's much more common now than it was back in the 90s, right? Like now there are like a number of just game engines people use because it saves them so much time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They can just build their characters in this existing space and then just tell the story that way.
As someone who uses collage as a piece of art, I have to say, like, I get what they're up to there.
But what Greg was asking you, Justin, is what other video games do you think they should remake?
Okay, so let's address, like, what do you mean by remake?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is the conversation we had in our episode. A remake is essentially, for the purposes of a video game, it can be as little as just update as like an HD remaster. So if it's like, I think they did that with Halo. They took the original Halo game and they didn't update it. They just kind of remastered it so it was crisper and cleaner and looked better.
I feel like can be a different term for that. That, in my mind, is not remake.
Not a remake. That's just a remastering.
Yeah.
It's like when they re-released Star Wars in HD or whatever, like that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Or Blu-ray, when they do that stuff for Blu-ray and they release an old movie, they clean it up, they fix the audio. They do that. They've done that for decades. But remakes, generally, it's the same story. They just find a different way to tell that story. And usually it's much better in the way of visuals. So there is, and you can tell, but you've played 2 remakes by now. You played the Final Fantasy 2 and Resident Evil 2 and Final Fantasy 7. So you're in a better position to know what that is.
Like, they're completely different games. They're just the same characters in the same setting, but like the stories were fairly different and the gameplay completely different.
But the main thrust of the story is the same, isn't it? Isn't it still like zombies and your Umbrella Corporation or whatever, and you gotta stop them?
Yeah,
So what we're talking about there, though, is a shift in genre. So you would have Resident Evil, for the dear listener who doesn't know what we're talking about, was a video game franchise that began as a suspense survival horror game where it used the low graphics capacity of the games to their great advantage. It filled them with darkness and smoke and made it hard to see things, and then monsters would leap out of the frame at you in real time. Scary.
I think it was also one of the first. It was one of the first survival horrors, and I think they kind of coined the tank controller. So your player moves like a tank. You have to like rotate them to the direction you want them to turn, and then press forward to go forward.
I hate that.
You move very, very slowly, and like the entire game, you maybe get like, there's 50 handgun bullets throughout this entire several hour game. So you're conserving bullets and not using them, and like before that, like Doom and Wolfenstein, right? It was just bullets nonstop and shooting everything full of holes, and now suddenly like you need to.
Well, and I think there was some integrity in the trying to make a game that was new, right? A game we hadn't played before, we hadn't seen a kind of game like that before, and it was terrifying. The original ones were actually scary to play. They had some great jump scares, and they had some great things like that. But then once you know what the punchline is, as with so many horror franchises, the suspense of it is bled out, and it shifts usually to these action horror, and Resident Evil is a perfect example of that. Since you already know that what the scare is, it's not scary, so instead they change the firepower. And I think that a lot of franchises in film and television and video games have suffered by not making a new thing.
It feels like lazy because they immediately, on the heels of the success of Resident Evil 2, they remade Resident Evil 3 using the exact same engine from the new remake. Like, probably in the same studio at the same time, they were rebuilding 2 and 3 into new games to release this last, like, couple months. And that, like, it does feel a bit lazy, but then, like, I was huge into Final Fantasy, but I wasn't big into Resident Evil back in the day, and now I'm getting to, like, have fun with Resident Evil 2 and 3 in a way that I missed out on.
Right.
So but it does feel like a little lazy. It's not quite reshooting the same film with new actors,
Right.
but it's
Well, it's interesting to me because it's easy for us as the players to say, oh, that seems reductive, or oh, that seems lazy, or oh, that seems whatever. But let's imagine now that you are a studio that has 150 animators and programmers, and you just really want to make sure that they're working next year.
yeah.
And someone gives you an opportunity to make 2 games at the same time, right? The consumer might look at it and say, oh, kind of lazy. But you as a business runner say, yay, 150 employees keep their jobs.
The entire Los Angeles area. Already hospital facilities have begun to crack under the strain, and civil defense authorities state that the situation is much the same across the entire country. Martial law is now nationwide.
One of the suggestions we had from one of the listeners, someone suggested the game Parasite Eve to remake,
Oh, yeah.
which would be good, and probably Silent Hill as well. Like some similar. Again, those are also survival horror games, but different from Resident Evil. Different enough that I think there's something there. You know,
I thought of an answer for which game I'd like to be remade. Was Legend of Dragoon on the original PlayStation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely it was trying to emulate the success of Final Fantasy VII. Like even the main character looks very similar, but it's the translation of it. I remember being pretty questionable. Like it didn't translate very well, and the story was a little sloppy. So a retelling of that would be great.
I want more. See, I've been downloading these old arcade games, reliving my youth vicariously through my children. So the comic store across the street from the high school I went to when I was in grade 10, we spent a lot of our time and money playing Samurai Showdown, the Neo Geo game.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, did I love that game. So it's not even that I need them to remake it. I just want a slightly higher res version to be released.
That's right. Yeah, that kind of game, all you would need is to really just give it the high-res treatment and you're good to go.
Yeah.
What I loved about those Neo Geo games is the ones that you could choose multiple games. Like they had Samurai Showdown and some other game in there as well. You could have like 2 or 3 different ones you could choose from.
Yeah, I know this one had multiple games. I can't remember what any of them are because I didn't put my quarters into them. They all went into Samurai Showdown. And I can remember... when I was going to that high school, a disgruntled old student who had gotten a job working as a janitor there so that he could burn the school down, enacted his clever and devious plan and succeeded.
Is that what happened?
That is what happened. Yeah, that is why.
By the way, I went to I know what you're talking about. I went to high school down the street, and we're the same age. We all cut class to go watch your school burn down.
Right. So, I can remember a very memorable afternoon because school is canceled because it's on fire, and I'm across the street looking out the window of a comic store while my high school burns while I play this samurai game, and I'm like, wow, does life get better than this? Like, all I wanted to do all day was play this game and hang out in the comic store, and then the school literally caught fire, and I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing. I have my plan.
But I never did find out what happened, how that fire started, so that's interesting. I didn't know it was a janitor.
So now would you rather them remake that game or do a sequel in the same name and do something different?
Yeah, and that's the danger of nostalgia. What I like about it, the moment they change any pixel, then I won't like it.
Right.
Right? I prefer generally, rather than remake, like my general stance on remakes is no, make a new thing. But I know how market forces work, and it's really easy to say, just make something new, and it's really hard to get somebody to buy something new that they've never heard of.
Yeah, like you said before as well, it's a safe bet, right? Like if you have the option to try something new or cash in on an existing property and you want to keep your business alive,
I've always liked the idea of remaking movies that they had promising concepts, but the execution maybe wasn't very good. Or something like that. One of my favorite movies that I think should be remade is Logan's Run.
Oh, so good.
But I mean, obviously the effects are not great. Whenever you see them traveling around the city, it's clearly a model, and it's not done very well. So the box robot is not great. So they could remake that and make it look really good. It's a great concept. It's a great concept for a story, and I think they could really do that well.
I met William F. Nolan once, the writer of the original novel.
Did you really?
Yeah, a really cool.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about him outside of his actual work, but he was a really interesting fellow. He was well liked and he carried on a really interesting conversation. I forget where I was. I was at some kind of horror association award, and maybe it was the Stokers. Might have been the Bram Stoker Awards. He was there as a guest, and it was a moment where I was like, man, who's that elderly looking wizard? And then somebody was like, oh, that's Nolan. I was like, wait, what? And there's like that moment where, like for you, it's you love that movie when you were young, that nostalgia factor kicks in. Do you risk meeting them in case they're a dick, and then it'll spoil your connection to that? But in this case, it was great. He was also, for a while, if I'm getting the author right, on his Facebook page, giving away ideas that he didn't have time to write anymore.
Oh, that's good.
So he would say, like, here's a premise for a novel. I'm pretty old now. I don't think I'll ever get around to writing it. So anyone who wants this premise, here it is. And he was doing that, like, here's out of my notebook, a novel I never got around to writing. Here's the basic structure of it, but, maybe someone else will run with this idea.
He's still around. I'm just looking him up right now. He's 92 years old.
There you go. See, and he looks like a wizard a bit.
He does, yes.
Right.
But what I was going to say about Logan's Run is that I think they could remake that and do a good job with that. But on the other hand, when they do, like, another example of an old 70s movie that was remade, or actually, more accurately, another movie was made based on the same story, is The Omega Man. The original film was The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend.
Yeah.
They made I Am Legend with Will Smith, and it wasn't as good as The Omega Man.
No,
right?
but it also wasn't even remotely close to the source story.
It felt like they were just, they played it so safe.
What wasn't close, The Omega Man or I Am Legend?
Well, Omega Man is closer, but I Am Legend isn't even the same, like the original I Am Legend story is about the last man on Earth in a world overrun by vampires, and it's named I Am Legend because he's the thing that all of the vampires are afraid of. Right? That's spoiler alert. That's the twist ending. The Will Smith one is just an excuse to have him drive a car fast and fight zombies in New York. I didn't like. Yeah. There was nothing good about it.
They started to get into it, like you saw hints that the vampires were intelligent. They cared about one another and stuff like that. But they really dropped the ball. It was disappointing.
Could have been great. Interesting. So remakes dangerous. Yeah, we just watched Logan's Run not long ago. I love that movie. So good. I mean, it's so bad, but it's also so good.
I'm curious, Dan, what do you think of Final Fantasy VII playing that now? Because that game came out like mid-90s. 95 or 96. I'm playing it now. I find I think the graphics are dated. Now, there's certain parts of it that it looks to me like whenever it cuts into a cinematic, it still looks really good. Like there's certain scenes where you get to see the city or see some kind of cutscene. And those graphics were amazing back then, and they still look good now. But as far as the gameplay is concerned, the frustrating thing I'm having with, and I'm still trying to work my way out of the city. I'm not that too far into the game yet. But there's certain levels in that city where you cannot easily find your way through the wreckage. There's a train yard, and there's the Sector 6 slums, and it's everything you have to kind of try to find your way, and it's not obvious. And it took me. I was sitting there for half an hour, and you keep running into monsters. Most frustrating thing playing that game is you're just kind of I'm there, and then you hear that dun 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 dun, and then the whole screen twist, and you're in a battle, and you're like, oh god, I just want to get out of this area. So that kind of thing is very nostalgic. I mean, I just remember playing that game, and I'm brought back to that time, but at the same time, it is frustrating in a lot of ways. But I just want to get out of the city. I know there's so much more to that game. I remember when I first played it, and when I got out of the city, I thought I was done. I thought the game was over. And then they're like, oh, there's so much more to this than just this city. I didn't realize it. So. That's where the remake actually ends. The first chapter of the remake ends as soon as you get out of the city. Oh, okay. So they're going to do more chapters? 4 or 5, I think. I think it's 5. Okay. But that's different as well. Releasing it a little bit at a time, that's something they never would have done back in the day. They give you a finished game. Now they can just keep updating it. Although I was worried about that too. I felt like they were just trying to get more money out of us, and they are. it was $70, and I'm like, if it's only like till I get out of Midgar, like that's not very much gameplay. But they've padded it out so much. I think I put in like 50 some hours into that game.
All right, well that's fine then.
Definition of a scientist: a man who understood nothing until there was nothing left to understand.
That reminds me of what you were saying, Greg, about the automatic age and how you designed it to be a book that you can read on an airplane or something like that, right?
Yeah. Short,
and it's
controlled bursts.
Right, and its price kind of reflects that, and so it's a couple hours of entertainment, similar to a film, a couple hours of entertainment. But what occurs to me is that when you buy a book, like, and you say you buy like a paperback, what do I have here? Ben Bova. You guys ever read this?
I have some Ben Bova. Yeah, I haven't read Mercury though.
Yeah, he's written a book basically about every planet in the solar system. And this is from 2005, so this is like 15 years old, but it's $9.99. This probably took me, I don't know, 10 hours to read, 10 hours of reading time, more than that probably, but it's like the ratio of like the payment to the how much time it takes to consume it is different for everything, right? It's kind of an interesting idea. So a book might take you a couple of weeks to read or something like that. You're going to pay $10 for it. You'll pay, $20 to go see a movie in the theater, plus popcorn and everything, and then you pay like $80 for a video game where you get 50 hours worth of entertainment. It's all kind of all over the place.
At least with the book, when it's done, you still have it.
Yeah.
So there's a side of that. Interesting you say about the value. So that Galaxy Fighter game that the kids are playing downstairs right now, I can hear them hooping and hollering about it. It's not like a standard, because it's just the arcade game ported into the PlayStation. You have to first push a quarter button, so you load it with credits before you can play. And so I think the game cost $11 to download. And so we kept track for the first little bit how many quarters we would have had to spend learning how to play the game. So it would have cost us $20 for them to be halfway decent at the game to begin with if they were playing it in the arcade. Every time they had to restart cost them a quarter, and we made a joke of like keeping it down. We put only the amount of credits that it would have cost us if we had bought the game. A little math exercise in quarantine. But it really reinforced to me how those games were designed to make you angry enough to put in another quarter, but hopeful enough that you could win. Right? Even though they were unrealistic hopes. And I wonder how much of our entire media consumer society is based around that exact thing. Like, you're going to have a little bit of disappointment. It wasn't quite what you wanted, but you're going to, not so much disappointment that you won't risk it again. I'm looking at you, Star Wars. Right?
Yeah.
Right? You just keep risking. You'll just, okay. And it's like how I feel about The Walking Dead, right? It's I've made this joke before that it's the abusive relationship of my TV watching, right? It always disappoints me, but I keep coming back because of the promise that it shows, And like this game,
but nostalgia, even now with The Walking Dead, nostalgia is a part of that as well, because that series has been around so long. You think back, and even further back, if you were a fan of the comic book, that kind of stuff. You think back to how good that was. And then you just keep hoping for that same that same feeling.
I will never forget that Halloween night where I watched the first episode of The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
right? And it was good, and everyone was like, "Whoa, hey, that could be what? You mean TV could be good?" It was weird. So expectation versus reality versus Interestingly enough, we just finished that article got posted. Dear listener, Justin and I were held accountable for our plagiarism practices from a young journalist who asked us questions, a bunch of people in the artistic community in Winnipeg, questions about what is the difference between inspiration and plagiarism and how it fits and how it works and where it fits into the worldview. To the point where it felt to me, and this is a little comeuppance for Tessa here, who is the writer. It was a little comeuppance for her because I felt like there was an agenda that was trying to be pushed forward, like that a decision had already been made about what the article was really going to say, and the questions were trying to get at that answer. I eat my words now. Totally untrue. Is I felt like a really well crafted, really well balanced look at everybody. Everyone had their say, and it didn't say one way was the right way. This was just like all the different ways in which people did it. So,
and I'll just let you guys know a little bit inside information on that project. That wasn't my assignment. It was another instructor. This is a student who was in my program. And it was another instructor, one of my colleagues, who put that whole thing together. And it's, by the way, worth reading. The website is called Working Draft. It's called workingdraft.com. And it's like an online magazine, Working Draft magazine. There's so many good stories from the students. They spend a good chunk of the school year working on those. So I think for Tessa, it was probably a learning. Probably she did come into it at the beginning with that in mind, with the agenda that you were talking about. But as she read through her answers, as she kind of crafted the story, and with feedback from her instructor, realized that there's more to it. So her final piece does reflect a more balanced approach, for sure. But that's part of the learning experience. That's part of what they teach in this program, right? You need to tell all sides of the story.
Well, and it was nice, too, for me to read it after the fact and realize that every now and then, just because you think you know what you're talking about, or that you have like some privileged position because you've worked in the industry and this is maybe a student asking those questions, that you feel like you know better than them. And that was the feeling I had at a certain point. That was just 100% my own ego getting in the way of what could have been a much better learning experience for everybody involved if I had just, been like, oh, why are you asking a question like that? Like, when it all came together, it really was this mirror that was like, oh yeah, hey, all these different people have different things you can learn from. Like reading Justin's answers, even though I work so closely with him, seeing it put writ large was a really different experience. And who else was covered? Scott Ford and Wolgamuth, yeah, the Renegade Pencil. And everyone had this different way of approaching what counts as inspiration and why. So that was and we're all inspired by the video games, the movies. Like, we've been talking about what remake we would make,
Yes.
What would you improve in Logan's Run?
What would I improve?
Yeah. What would you improve?
So I would improve. Well, I think the miniatures, the little cars going around the tubes in the city.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Box, the robot does not look very good. What does he say again?
Yeah, because he has basically like those silver tube arms.
Yeah, basically it's a guy with a tinfoil on his face, and he doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
But what is that? I can't remember the line. I know I've used it as a clip for this show for transitions. I can't remember what the line is, but it's something bounty from the sea or something he says. You know what?
Go ahead.
Shopping mall inserts were my favorite inserts we've ever had on.
You should watch it. It's a good movie.
Oh, I've seen most of it. I saw it as a child, and probably before.
You saw it as a child? Oh, Justin. It's not a kids movie. It's not. There's more for the nudity and sex in it than the violence.
That's why you watched it.
Blame Greg Curry for me seeing too many rated R films growing up.
Talking to you, Greg Curry, if you're listening. We're we'd like to talk to you about your parenting practices. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this has been Super Pulp Science, where we've talked about our expectations for remakes, for storytelling, for plagiarism and inspiration. This is Gregory Kamichuk encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.